Hey everyone, welcome back to Rob's Funk and Junk podcast, episode number 40. Uh, um, yeah, have you missed me? I've been away a couple of weeks from here. I've not been on for a couple of weeks. I did actually record one last week, but I got the camera wrong, and yeah, it wasn't my best work, so I scrapped it, which can sometimes happen. Let me just turn myself down here. 1, 2, testing. There you go. How are you all out there waiting for this springtime to come? The spring that never comes. Yeah, it's bloody cold. What time is it? It's Monday the 29th of April. It's now 12 minutes past 1. I have been at it all day. I've been, what have I done? Walked the 3 dogs, had breakfast, walked the 3 dogs, mowed the lawn, and cleaned out the chickens today. Rock and roll. That's rock and roll for you. Right, I'm going to try and stop saying Yeah, I haven't been around. I was away a week before last. I was away in Spain teaching, which was great fun with the lovely the band that formed on a guitar camp. Gunter, very lovely people. I will say hello, Cliff, Werner, in no particular order. Rich, Martin, Andrew, who joined the band. There's Johnny, who was unable to make it, unfortunately. Who else have I missed? Have I missed anyone? Deenan, yes. They wrote a really cool song last week, and looking to release it very shortly, I believe. Watch those royalties flood in, and I'm just saying, quite thirsty, quite parched, with the old Rob's Funk and Junk mug, or just the Funk and Junk mug. Just saying, these are now available. If you look below, these are now available along with some t-shirts and hoodies. It just helps keep the wolf from the door. If anyone fancies drinking, actually, this does really improve the taste. I've got a herbal tea at the moment, which is some kind of strawberry mint blend of herbal tea. So yeah, it usually tastes absolutely awful, but it tastes much better with this. Hang on. So yeah, parading the new Funk and Junk merch. Stop saying. So what's been happening? Yeah, the podcast I did the other day that I recorded that never came out. I was talking. I was thinking about the subject of why play the guitar. Why do I play the guitar? I had a few things that have happened. One of them was actually on a flight that I was on recently, and I was talking to this guy who was having he sat down next to me on the plane, and bless him, he was not having the best time in his life. He was very stressed, very upset, and sort of unloaded all of this stuff onto me. While I was sat next to him, I was like, what are we going to do? So I sort of got parts of his life story when I was on the plane, and he had a rubbish time. But we started talking about music. He saw that I had a guitar next to me because I had to have a seat for the guitar, and he asked me about music and what was it I did. I'm just going to check that I'm recording this. 1 second. Yes, I am recording. Yeah, he asked me about what it was I did, and we started talking about that. It was almost like a way to change the subject, really, because he was telling me some pretty dark stuff. wasn't a pleasant conversation, and I was trying to sort of have this conversation, but sort of turn it around, to sort of look on the bright side of things. But he started asking me about playing the guitar, and when invariably when you have this conversation, someone says, "Oh, I'm useless at playing. I've got not a musical bone in my body, and I never tried it." But and it's been something I've thought about quite a bit lately. Is why do we choose the guitar or any instrument? What is it we do it for? Do we pick up the guitar for fame and fortune, to get girls, to get boys, to that initial stage of what it is? When you were when I was a kid, when I was 7, what was it that made me? Why was I drawn to that instrument and music? And it's that, while I'm out on my dog walks, I often think about music. I listen to music a lot, and I've one of the things I've noticed that music does for me and playing does for me is that when this is just one of them. When I've had particularly stressful periods of my life, music is almost the thing that my brain goes to. When I pick up a guitar and I'm playing, or if I'm, learning some songs or doing a gig, I can actually. It's almost like taking your brain out and soaking it. I remember once I was on a journey and going through some pretty heavy stuff. I was going to Liverpool. I was doing a gig in Liverpool. I was playing at the Cavern, and I was doing a tour for. It was for Fender guitars, and I got on the train where I live, and I was taking the train to Liverpool to go and play at the Cavern. And for the length of the journey, I was having a pretty tough discussion and disagreement with someone. And I don't need to go into what it was, but it was pretty stressful and heavy. And that went, however long the journey was. It was on the phone. It was texts and phone calls and arguing, and not great for your brain, or for my brain anyway. But I got off the train, and I just had a bag with me, because I was literally walking out of the train station and walking into town, into the centre of Liverpool, to get to the Cavern, and I just remember the weight of the world was on my shoulders. Just, I felt absolutely terrible. Just not in a great place. It was really, really not a pleasant time. But when I walked into the venue, everyone else in the band was on stage already, getting ready to sound check. And I walked in, and I must admit, I didn't feel like being anywhere. I just wanted to, go to bed, pull the duvet over me, and sort of wake up in 2 weeks' time when everything had settled. But I walked in, put my bag down, probably just said a quick hello to people, but got no conversation. And I picked up a guitar, turned the amp on, and just played for about 45 minutes in the sound check. And it was only after we'd finished the sound check, I realised that all of that stress, it hadn't all gone, but that the immediacy of the heavy feeling had just gone away for me. It just gone. And that was the first time I think I realised that that's something that I perhaps done a lot before. I sort of disappear into playing the guitar. I think there's obviously something to do with it, that your brain can't focus on two things at once. You're having to think about playing and what it is you're doing, and the sounds you're making, and the communication with the other musicians. And it just almost shut that other side of my brain off for a while. And I realised the power of that. It's a very, very therapeutic thing to do, play. It's almost meditative for me. When I'm in the studio, I come in and I'm in, and everything else sort of disappears. That's why, I try to get as few distractions as possible, because when you get distracted from it, it's almost like my brain, I'm not talking about everyone, it's just the way I'm sort of working it out in my head. Your brain, the one side of your brain is being used for a certain thing, and then when you get distracted, it gets taken away from that. So that's why I try to get as few distractions as possible. But I really noticed the value of it, to the point where a few years ago, and this is something I don't mind discussing on here, it was just before Christmas, a couple of years ago, and we were kind of in mid-lockdown still. And I was sat in my old studio, which was a log cabin down the end of the garden. And I was doing something, and I got a phone call from my sister, and it was my sister. My mum was in hospital at the time. She was very poorly. And I got a phone call from my sister explaining that this was it. My mum was going to be put on end of life care, which I kind of expected was going to happen anyway. But to have that phone call is a pretty heavy phone call. And of course, I had the discussion with my sister, and we spoke for a bit. But after, what more? There's not a lot you can say to it. But I put the phone down, and literally 3 minutes later, I get another phone call. I'm just sat there like numb. I get another phone call, and it was someone that I work with, a producer that I work with all the time, saying, "Am I available for a session now?" At that point, can I do some recording? And I just said, "Yep." I just did it, send it over. Yeah, I don't know if that was the right thing to do, but I just know that it sort of, I couldn't have coped very well with that. Sorry, I'm getting a bit upset. I couldn't have coped very well with that, but it's so maybe it was I just chose to do that because I could. I knew that my brain was going to go, right, you can't deal with this right now. You can't cope with it. So just, that's there, leave it there, and just get on with this, just to take your brain away from it. So that, I know, is quite a heavy thing to discuss on a podcast, but it's my podcast. I can talk about what I want to talk about. But yeah, it's something that's made me think about, and that went back to me talking to this guy on the plane who was seemed like his whole life was like that. Very stressful, very sad stories. But I was sort of eschewing, explaining the huge values of playing an instrument or doing something, just doing something where your brain has to be occupied by something else for a bit. Some people use alcohol or drugs or whatever. I'm not saying that, to take their brain away from that. But I think music, for me personally, is a huge thing that helps me cope with some stuff, stresses, and I think I've just listened to a massive long podcast while I was mowing the lawn about trying to keep stress away from your life, which, as this, I can't remember the name of the guy I was listening to, but he was saying, stress is always going to be in your life. It's just how you cope with it. That's the thing. It's how much of it you allow to infringe on you. So I don't know if that makes any sense to anybody, and I know it sounds like a very down podcast, but yeah, it's just been something I've been thinking about. I've been wanting to sort of talk about this quite a bit, actually. But when the other thing with doing this podcast is, and one thing I want to say is hi to anyone that's new here. Sorry if I've scared you off and you run off. I don't mean to do that. I do talk about guitars a lot. I do talk about music a lot. But I find that this is, well, I am talking about guitar. I'm talking about music. You know, this is an important thing to me. Is a reason for one of the reasons I like playing, and I love music, and I love the feeling I get when I play music. So that's probably all ties into the same thing. Heavy podcast, and the other thing I have sometimes I feel a bit of pressure sometimes to. Oh, I haven't recorded a podcast this week. I must do a podcast this week. But then I've realised that sometimes I don't feel like I've got anything to talk about, and I don't want to just sit here talking about anything. You know, just making up something to talk about. I've got. You have to feel like you've got something to say. So here I am anyway, whether it's worth saying or not. But thank you for listening anyway. But I don't know if any of you out there have had a similar feeling about playing an instrument, or you do something else, or, you know, some people are into cars and some people are into, you know, football. It could be anything. But it's I do think it's great to have. I mean, I know, you know, some people think of me playing guitar as a hobby, or someone playing guitar as a hobby. I suppose it is a hobby, you know, but it's just something I do to make a living as well. And that's quite a balancing thing. Is you have to make a living, but you still got to enjoy it. And I try as much as I can to enjoy it. I must say, last week I had a great week. I was I had a couple of gigs at Langen's, which was amazing fun. I sort of had a massive smile on my face after playing there. And then I had 3 gigs last week and a couple of writing days in the studio with for the upcoming Jamiroquai record. So really, really great couple of days. So it was great creating new music and playing music. That's kind of what I wanted to do when I was a kid. You know, I get to live my childhood fantasies. So, yeah, lucky me. Lucky me. Yeah. But sometimes I don't feel like doing it. Sometimes you don't feel like going to the gig and playing. But one thing I can guarantee is that as soon as I get there, I'm having a great time. I love it. As soon as I pick up that guitar, my brain just gets soaked away. So to anyone who's out there who's thinking of picking up an instrument and learning to play, I can totally recommend it. As frustrating and expensive as it can be, it's very, very fulfilling. You do lose hours and hours just soaking your brain and enjoying it, I would say. Yeah, but if anyone's got any other things that they want to say, you know, talk about with regards to this, if it helps you in any way, playing instruments, playing music, listening to music, going to gigs, please write in. Send a stamped addressed envelope. I am actually going to get round to discussing some, to answering some questions, because it's been a little while since I've looked in my emails. I've not had loads. David Moran, who I know. Hello, David. How are you? He came to a guitar workshop thing, a camp. And you sent this ages ago, over a month ago. Sorry, David, I've not answered, unless I have answered, but I don't think I did. It said, I got back from you that week. The informal band I was jamming with have now built up. The informal band I was jamming with have now built up a decent cover set and have our first gig for family and friends next weekend. So I've missed it. Sorry. And there's a nice endorsement plug for the upcoming. Oh, yeah. So a question for the podcast. At the ripe old age of 51, this will be the first time I've played in front of an audience. What would be your main tips heading into the gig? We put the work in. We know we sound pretty decent. I'm sure it's going to be great fun, but also feels like a big leap into the unknown. So I've missed that gig. I hope the gig went well, David. Sorry I didn't answer this in time. Sorry. How did it go? Write in, let me know how it went. I can only think about how it felt when I first did it. I think my first gig was, I can't remember, I was very young. I used to play at parties when I was a kid. I sort of think of it like standing, I'm terrible. Whenever I go on holiday, right, I'm standing next to a swimming pool, and if the water's too cold, it will potentially take me ages to get in. I can't stand swimming in cold water. So what I've learned to do, and I have to follow my own advice here, is if you just jump in and start swimming, yeah, you're cold for a couple of seconds, but then you're doing something. It's almost like your brain, the swimming action takes over, and you just get on with it. So, doing a gig for the first time is amazing fun, and the adrenaline is a great feeling. That's the bit I get addicted to. Really, is the adrenaline rush of going onto a stage and playing. But it's very much a case of once you start, you're in it. You know, the nerves, hopefully, after a few seconds will go, and you can just. And another thing I do that helps me is I'm concentrating more on what everyone else is doing. I'm listening to what they're playing so I can play with them. And I think that might, as soon as you realise that not everybody is looking at you or thinking about you or listening to you, it becomes a lot easier. They're not. They're listening to the overall thing. There might be a few people out there checking out the guitar player, checking out the bass player, the singer, the drummer, but they're not actually focusing on just you. Or if they are, it might be for a second. It's fleeting. So just, if you enjoy doing it, just carry on doing it. You know, just carry on. It's addictive. I love it. I love getting up to play. I also like the risk and the thing of not knowing quite what's going to happen sometimes. I actually thrive on that. I love it. But thanks for that, David. Sorry I missed it, and hope the gig went well. I had a message from my good friend. That was Nick Granville. Hi, Nick. This was also a while ago. 18th of February you sent this. Bloody hell. Did I not answer this? I thought I answered it. Actually, I did answer it because I did a video on it. Nick Granville from New Zealand, who is a lovely, lovely man and an amazing player, and he's got a great channel as well. Go and check out Nick Granville's guitar channel. He does like a video a day, teaching some amazingly amazing tips on playing guitar and jazz, etc. He's a genius. He's wicked and a lovely man. We met for a coffee last time he was over here. He came over, and we'd never met in person before, but we sort of knew each other online, and he just messaged me one day and said, "Do you want to meet up for a coffee?" So I went and had a coffee with him. And the next time I saw Nick was at the NAMM show. And he's a dude. He's a dude. So I've answered this question before, but I'll answer it again for anyone that's missed. He said, "Hope all's well, mate. Wonder if I might ask a few questions. Do you use a compressor on your clean tone?" Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I did a video about it on the channel called "To Compress or Not to Compress." I thought I'd do some kind of William Shakespeare thing, being all clever and trying to be funny, but probably wasn't funny. If so, how do you go about setting it? I hate to ask about gear. I know it's all about pocket and groove, which you do so. Bless him. But I often struggle with compression. Now, anyone who watched my last video, I actually don't use a compressor a lot of the time, unless I'm using it for an effect that I want it to sound a certain way. When I'm playing funk stuff, I don't use a compressor most of the time because I want the dynamic range in my playing. I want to play soft. If I want it soft, it's soft. If I want to play edgier, it's edgier. And I find that a compressor limits that, exactly does that. It limits it. So, but sometimes I do use a compressor, and I will compress the snot out of it. I'll squeeze it to within an inch of its life to get that real 80s kind of pachang sound, or a splang sound as I call it. I will use a compressor for that, but most of the time. Number 2, dig the white Strat. Can you tell me more about it? If not, no worries. Well, anyone who's been watching out there, I've been playing this white Stratocaster It is my signature guitar that I have had made by a lovely company called Patrick Eggle Guitars. I've got a signature guitar coming out soon. I'm not sure of the release date, but yes, it's an amazing instrument. It's really good, and when it comes out, I'll do a video on it, and I'll talk about it all properly then. Cheers for the questions, Nick. Hope you're good. Right, Ivan Corbino. Where are you from, Ivan? Ivan. Hi, Rob. I was listening to one of your podcasts in which you talk about the importance of studying rhythm guitar. If you want to be a professional guitarist, and I would like... sorry. It was changed the line. I was listening to one of your podcasts in which you talk about the importance of studying rhythm guitar if you want to be a professional guitarist. And I would like to ask how you recommend approaching this type of study. What are your goals and the concepts you focus on for your practice routine? Right. So, I'm going to grab an acoustic guitar quickly. Bear with me. Don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. Right. I saw a video on this recently. And it was an amazing video, actually. It was on Tom Bukovac's homeschooling, and he was talking to the amazing guitarist, I think it's Brian Corbett. My brain's gone. But I'm going to try and do this quietly so I don't kill the microphone. He was talking about, there was this thing called Lick of the Day or something, or, I can't remember what it was called, but Tom Bukovac's in a studio and he's talking to the musicians he's playing with, and he says, show me an important lick of the day, a killer lick or something. So Brian, if that's his name, I think he's known in Nashville for doing a lot of the acoustic sessions. He specialises in acoustic guitar, and from what I've heard, he's amazing. But one of the things he did was he got a metronome, and he set the metronome up. I've just dropped my plectrum. He set the metronome up to just be, I think it was around 75 BPM or 80 BPM, and he set it up, and he just started playing this, muted strings. So you got your metronome, tick, 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 like so, right? I'm pretending there's a metronome here. But he's playing muted strings and playing 16th notes, like so. And then he starts having a conversation. He's like having a chat with Tom, asking him about his day, talking about the amazing new Funk and Junk mugs that are now available on Rob Harris's Funk and Junk podcast. But he's playing completely in time with the click and not speeding up or slowing down, right? That is something that I would really practice a lot. I was talking about it a lot last week. Having the rhythm having the tempo and the beat so tightly within yourself, so internal, that you can play and have a conversation. That's a really good thing to practice. I swear, it's really good. If you do 3 to 4, 5 minutes a day of that, just set a thing, have a conversation with your friend, have a conversation with your partner, talk to yourself like I just did there. Perhaps get a book and read passages from a book and check in with yourself all the time whether you're playing in time to the click. I know you might think it's crazy, but it is. It's a really important thing to have. I mean, you can see I'm still on it now. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, It's really important to have that. And then what you do with that is you take that into your other playing, into your other practice. You kind of work on it so you can it just means you're comfortable picking up what time is, listening to records and understanding what the time is, what the tempo is. Move your body so you're moving in time. That's the important thing that I would practice. When you're listening to music, you're sort of almost practicing while you're not playing, right? So that's an important thing. And when I see students doing that, and then they come back and I see them later, I can always tell they've improved. I can tell that their timing and their internal meter has gotten better. So yeah, there's that one. And there's a question here from Michael Gibson. Hi, Michael. How you doing? Where are you from? I don't know where you're from. It doesn't say. Hi, Rob. Loving the podcast lately, by the way. Very interesting to hear your thoughts and experiences on guitar and the music industry in general. Thank you very much. I have a question about the Jamiroquai song Black Devil Car. Although it's not a live staple for the band, it's one of my favourite tracks on the Dynamite album. I'm assuming you came up with the chord progression and the guitar parts for that song. That's correct. If so, it sounds slightly different to other cuts on the album. So I was wondering what guitar players, musical artists inspired you in writing this, if you can remember. Cheers and keep up the work. Good work, Michael. Thank you, Michael. Yes, so I did write that. I came up with that. I was just sitting around one day. Yeah, came up with that. Don't know what I'd been listening to. It's just like sevenths. So yeah, it goes. It's like what is it? B flat 7, A flat 7, G flat 7, E7, D flat 7, B7. G flat 7, E flat 7, and then I'm just playing. Yeah, it just came out like that. I don't know. It was good fun to do though. We played it live a few times, but not loads. It is right. People tend to stop dancing when it gets too complicated like that. You know, when it's not really that groove based. It was more sort of. Little bit rocky, I might say, you know, possibly, but there are so many layers of guitars on that song. I think there's probably 12 guitar layers on that. It was a proper guitar fest. You can't hear that there's 12 on there, but there are probably 12 on there. It's the loads of different layers of things. One guitar doing one sort of tone, the other one playing. It's loads of doubles, and it's just building up this huge mesh of noisy guitars. But I am going to end the podcast there. I know it's been a bit of a strange one. Bear with me. Yeah, it's just an important subject I thought I'd talk about today. So yeah, I hope I've not sent you all to sleep or depressed you too much. But the dog's barking and I've got a session to get on with now. So I am going to say goodbye, and hopefully I will see you next week. Have a great week, and thanks for watching, and don't forget, you know, lovely drinking vessel here. Have a great day. Bye.